All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Omer and Ed, for your very exciting insights. In the meantime, our next panelists have arrived for our next panel discussion. Please welcome on stage Mr. Vyas Krishnan, Strategy of EigenLayer, Mr. Federico Carrone, co-founder of EigenLayer. The panel will be moderated by Ms. Nicole Sun from Zuzalu Core. They will be discussing a very hot topic in the Web3 space, the zero knowledge proof and restaking. Zero knowledge proof has captured a lot of attention these days, and it's very exciting to be discussing this topic in more detail after it had been already mentioned today in the morning. So let's welcome them on stage, please. Let's give them a warm round of applause, everyone.
Hi, guys. I'll give a bit of a self-intro first. I'm Nicole. I'm actually from Hong Kong. I grew up here, and I'm a venture partner at Hack VC. I also started this thing called Zuzalu with Vitalik. It is a pop-up city experiment. We do large events. Last year, we did a 2-month-long pop-up in Montenegro, and we invited over 1,000 people there. So just some context for who I am. And please welcome Fede.
Hi.
So Fede came from really far away, took a 40-hour flight from Argentina to get here. So it's really rare we have him from across the world. Yes, Fede, would you like to tell us a little bit more about Lambda class?
Yeah, sure. I'm Fedi. I'm an engineer. I have been working professionally in software for the last 19 years. I founded Lambda class 10 years ago. Most people call it a dev shop. I don't believe it's a dev shop, but whatever. Like taxonomy is the least interesting science. We have been working on Starknet, on the infra. We created the new Cairo VM. We're helping one of our bigger partners, CK Sync, on multiple things, decentralization of the sequencer, making the prover faster, full EVM compatibility, on a lot of other things, volition, etc. We're also working with Polygon Maiden, Mina. So in crypto, we're mostly known for CK. But actually, our background is mostly compiler security on decentralized systems.
Awesome. So yeah, Lambda class is one of the biggest infrastructural players in the entire crypto space, but very few people seem to know that.
I like that.
So yeah, we're doxing Fede here for the first time. Actually, please give us a little bit more context of what got you into crypto.
Sure. I'm from Argentina. So that's the answer. We had 200% inflation. I created my company 10 years ago. I come from a traditional oil and gas Argentinian guy. My father is an Argentinian guy, but he worked a lot in Texas. So you can imagine, like, very traditional. I didn't know much about finance or companies. I remember I told him, like, what should I do? Well, go to the bank, create a bank account. I went to the bank. I saw, like, hey, I'm getting 10K, 15K paid per month from a client. It was just me. And the bank told me, like, we cannot create that bank account for you. And I'm like, why? I want to export. We cannot. And I'm like, okay. So the second option was Bitcoin. So I started getting payments in Bitcoin. So the banking sector in places like Latam sucks. Hey, that was my. It's not that I believe in Bitcoin or anything. It was just the only option. Yeah, only option. Right now, actually, it continues to be a pain in the ass to be an exporter in Argentina. So we exist thanks to crypto. In Europe, on the US, many people tell you, like, crypto has no use case. Well, my company wouldn't exist. I do believe we provide a lot of value in crypto. It wouldn't exist if we couldn't get paid. Like, something as simple as getting paid is a mess.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's why I see crypto adoption being the biggest in emerging markets where it's needed. All it is decentralized trust. And here, welcome Vyas. He is from EigenLayer.
Hey guys, apologies.
Yeah, give us a little self-introduction because we just went around.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with the EigenLayer team, primarily leading strategy and the DA ecosystem development. but I've been there since day one, so a lot of different hats across multiple of our products now, and yeah, just supporting any of the strategy, BD, and product initiatives in any way I can.
And what was it that got you into crypto initially?
I got in very early on for like somewhat degen reasons. Yeah, and then slowly started to learn more about the space, read into white papers. Got lucky to be at the University of Illinois when Andrew Miller and Pramod Vishwanath, both very prominent researchers, were actively teaching there. So got to explore the community a little bit. And then really it became about, I mean, Fede just touched on this. So Bitcoin introduced like decentralized trust, and then Ethereum introduced decentralized programmable trust. And so it really started to open up this wave of, you know, a bunch of hackers and a bunch of builders in the space at the time in our community who were just actively iterating, starting to build, you know, some DeFi primitives, like the precursors to DeFi. So yeah, I was working in traditional banking and like cross-border payments at the time, and just saw how inefficient that whole space was. You know, something as simple as getting paid, like we just said, and the inefficiencies of like remittance and licenses and things like that, where I was like, hey, we can move to a much faster decentralized settlement world that crypto enables.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit more about the two protocols you guys work on. So first, let's start with EigenLayer, one of the most interesting primitives of this recent time.
Yeah, so EigenLayer actually started because we wanted to tackle the bootstrapping problem for blockchains. So our founder, Sriram Kundan, tried starting a L1 in 2019 with Pramod Vishwanath as well as David Shea from so Babylon Witness Chain and EigenLayer tried starting a L1 with Solana type performance back in 2019. And it was incredibly difficult to bootstrap. So now you see David tackling the bootstrapping problem to some extent in Bitcoin, us tackling the bootstrapping problem in Ethereum, and then Pramod, who's working on both an AI project as well as Witness Chain, which is, you know, trying to improve the efficacy of like event-driven automation for monitoring networks.
Awesome. And actually, let's talk a little bit about your new product. Okay, Fede. Align layer is something people might not know enough about. Just give us an Eli 5 on what it is.
Yeah, so we're patching in some way the incapabilities of Ethereum to be fast and cheap for CK verification. So what we're doing is making verification on aggregation of proofs on Ethereum very cheap and very fast. So that's it. I believe long term, CK will be everywhere. So we want to have a place where we can verify the proofs. I believe that Ethereum, for different reasons, I can go into details afterwards, very technical details, will never be, will be always the place where you want to settle things, but it will always have, it won't have the best performance for that, at least in the next minimum 5 to 10 years. Maybe in the future it can change, but it's quite difficult. So what we're trying to do is be very aligned with Ethereum, because I'm like a hardcore Ethereum fan on Bitcoin too, but I work mostly on Ethereum. So what we're trying to do is literally we're trying to build a lot of different products, because we know very well what can be done with CK, and we're like, okay, we need this. We need a way of having a layer where we can verify the things I want to build on top of.
Everyone keeps saying that ZK is so far away and it's so hard to understand. What is your take on that? When will ZK be usable?
I'm an engineer and I like practical things. I believe if you cannot teach somebody else what you know, that's not science. But at the same time, I believe that right now, academia and also due to investments and narrative, there's the general trend is that people like making things more complicated than they really are. In part, my business, Lambda, exists because I can teach other people things and simplify them. So I don't believe CK, so I have huge respect for researchers. But one thing is the research on the difficulty of, so for example, Eigen is a good example. getting the idea of Eigen is, from my point of view, pretty crazy and difficult being the person that had the idea. But if you think about Eigen, like the concept per se, after you got the idea, it's not that complicated. Actually, the guys from Eigen will say you could have invented Eigen. I believe the same happens with CK right now. Maybe 10 years ago, no. But right now, you can teach an engineer how to write its first proving system in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, we're doing that. So, I believe it's teachable, something that in general doesn't work that well. Most companies on the things that are online don't have a system to teach engineers how to learn CK. I think that's doable, and that will get in the next year solved. And the second thing is, like, I think it's getting so fast. Not a week, but every month or 2 months, there's a new paper making things way faster. So I believe it's way closer than what most people think. And actually, you have StarkNet on CK Sync, on Polygon, different systems from Polygon that are pretty fast and cheap. So I actually believe it's already next door.
Amazing. Also, then what are the use cases that can be unlocked with something like a line layer and usable ZKs?
So the first one is bridging between L2s. You can have storage proofs. You can prove the whole state of HL2 on while you have that, you can verify that you have some asset somewhere, and you can move it to the other place with some intent-based market. So you can have very cheap and very safe bridging. You can have CKML, from my point of view, will be used a lot in the next few years. Having the ability of verifying any type of proof of what you did in the past, something that cannot be done right now. If you can verify that very cheaply, it will start being used everywhere. Even in gaming, I have a few crazy ideas where it can be used, but I think any type of computation will move to CK. On any that is CK will get verified somewhere. So actually, from my point of view, it's the other way around. It's like, what won't use CK? It will take a few years. In the meantime, we can use, that's why I also like a lot Eigen, because I'm a big CK fan, but I also believe for the next 3 to 5 years, there's a lot of use cases that won't be able to be done with CK. You cannot get a CK SQL server running. That's why Eigen is also very useful. So that's it.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something really important here, which is the separation between cryptographic verifiability and then crypto-economic security, right? And we're tackling the crypto-economic security problem and then creating a platform where projects like Lambda class and EigenLayer can build all these modules that will introduce more cryptographic primitives or implement the crypto-economic security into these, modules that really just reduce the complexity for builders, right? You want to make it as streamlined as possible for builders to expand the use cases where L2 block space is no longer a limitation, right? So maybe I'll break that down just a little further, right? Eigen is looking to, actually not just Eigen, I would say the industry right now is really focused on scalability across each layer of the modular stack. Right? We're seeing a lot more emphasis on scale at the sequencing level, at the DA layer with both Eigen and all the other alt DAs out there. Scaling execution is the whole roadmap for rollups, right? So we're starting to see computation shifted from the L1 to the L2, but there's still a limitation on the L2 of what people can build. And as we, in the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a lot more, actually even shorter term, we're starting to see a lot more app-specific rollups. App chains that have a demand for more scale, more throughput, more demands. And it'll take time to move to a fully cryptographic future. But in the meanwhile, we can achieve strong crypto-economic guarantees, which is what you see with the large amount of optimistic rollups today. Optimistic rollups are inherently especially ones with not necessarily fully implemented fraud proofs, it's a full crypto-economic guarantee today. There's very little cryptographic security guarantees. So we're excited for more ZK enablement, but again, it's going to take some time where all the use cases can actually leverage the benefits of it.
Makes a lot of sense. Actually, please dive into more what a EigenLayer powered future looks like to you.
Yeah, create a center for increasing the rate of coordination. I think that's the real focus of EigenLayer. How do we enable projects to limit the amount of redundancy in terms of what's being built in the space, so we can start to accelerate Ethereum much faster. I think that's the real focus here. And that involves, initially enabling projects to be able to borrow this security from EigenLayer as a platform, use EigenDA, or use any of the services that are built on top. And then eventually we're actively iterating on EigenInsurance, which is an idea that we have for, specifically initially maybe bridges that could buy insurance that covers up until a certain amount for assets in transit. We could, we're excited about a lot of different AVSs in the fully homomorphic encryption space, or introducing a lot more like trusted execution environments, or just increasing the modularity of what's possible to be built on Ethereum, while also creating a place for builders to congregate, and really the power of the commons of Ethereum.
Amazing. I guess we all work on scaling Ethereum and working towards this crypto endgame, but what are the biggest bottlenecks and limiting factors that are stopping us from being there right now? To both of you.
So I think the DA problem is somewhat solved with the EAP 4884 on blobs. EigenDA on other solutions will make that even better. That was one of the biggest bottlenecks that existed in blockchains. Then I think proving time for any CK rollup or any CK applications, because there's also CK applications that are not rollups. For example, one of them is WorldCoin. It's one of the biggest users of gas in Polygon. All of them use a lot of CPU and GPU to prove things. I believe the ones that the proving time gets faster, that will enable other applications, because it's too expensive right now to prove simple things. So that's the next step. From my point of view, the one that's following that is CK verification. Because in the next 2 years, proving will decrease. It will be very easy. Now you have SP1 on RISC-0 to prove Rust. So you can already prove any common developer that doesn't know any CK can write Rust and prove it, but it's pretty slow. It's getting better. It will take 1 to 2 years. From my point of view, there's a lot of papers on research being done from very good companies like Starkware, CKSync, Polygon, etc. But the next frontier will be making the verification very cheap, very, very fast, and that's why we're a little bit ahead of the market. I think we're in 2 steps ahead, but that's why I believe it's a good company. It's because it's a good idea that in 1 year it will be obvious. Like Celestia, when Celestia came, in my case, I read the paper and I was like, why do I want this? I don't get it. Because that data availability sampling. It took me a while to understand that it made the possibility of creating very cheap DA. The same with verification. Why do you want cheap verification in CK if you are still not using proving or CK? Well, when everybody uses it, you will need it.
Yeah, when the cost of writing to Ethereum was negligible, then nobody cared about alternative DAs. And then as soon as gas goes up and the cost of doing computation on the L1 is so expensive, we start moving to rollups and we start moving to alt DAs and we start finding alternative solutions. I'm actually going to answer your question in 2 parts. And to be honest, I want to get a little spicy here. So I think the first half of this market, of this bull run, specifically of this cycle, we're starting to see most of the price action and activity on Solana. And that's because Solana is it's an L1 optimized for trading and for traders. They have really fast settlement times. They have a lot of liquidity. And those are the things that motivates traders. And the reality is we don't have a ETH L2 that's optimized for both of these constraints to drive some of these traders to our community and get some of the price action in Ethereum, which I think is something that some of these projects should be focused on. And I'm excited to see the alt VMs start to focus a lot more in that space, right? We're starting to see Move VM as L2s. We're starting to see a lot more projects pushing the barriers of TPS on Ethereum L2s, which we're excited about. And then the second thing is the infrastructure precedes the use cases because the builders know how to use the infrastructure. But the reality is, if we want to make a dent in general adoption, the majority of this needs to be abstracted away from the end user. When we're interacting with the majority of applications that we interface with on a daily basis, you don't recognize the number of SaaS modules that are implemented in your application, right? You sign in with OAuth and you pay with Stripe, and they're using some ML module, but the end user has no friction of any of these modules. And the reality is the UX in our space isn't designed that way, and we need to move to a Eigen is building infrastructure, EigenLayer is building infrastructure, and then the layer of developers building on top of our platforms, whether it's an L2, well, then it goes even a further step downstream to the dApp builders who are responsible for the UX, right? So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of building infra that can scale, but then we need to tackle this UX problem so that, I want my mom to be able to engage with crypto one day, and the UX of getting her on a wallet and getting her involved in the ecosystem is just way too high of a barrier today. And so if we want to make a dent in general adoption, we need to start tackling some of these problems as well.
I mean, that's a very good point. Even as, I guess, someone who engages in crypto, I've been hacked twice. It's so hard to use the crypto applications. So I guess here's a more contrarian take. Why Ethereum? Especially in Asia, there's a lot of uptake of alt L1s. How does MetaMask compare to something like BonkBot, where you just walk on Telegram, you buy some shitcoins, and you make a ton of money? Why Ethereum?
So I think it goes back to, and we have this thesis with EigenDA specifically, but it goes back to the amount of value that's embedded in a transaction and how much projects value security. Security is often a retroactive approach. People are far more secure once they've been hacked once. People are very proactive to security. So projects are still trying to understand on EigenLayer, how much security do we need? What's the estimation and things like that? Because it's a really tough problem to tackle. But the power of Ethereum is, we have about $100 billion staked, but we have about a $400 billion market cap in Ethereum. So we've already seen a good amount of stake to market cap and leverage ratio where people trust the security and efficacy of Ethereum. You compare that to something like Solana, my numbers might be off, but up until recently, Solana only had about 2 billion staked, right? A much, much smaller amount staked because users in that ecosystem want to keep their assets liquid, versus users in our ecosystem value stability and the democratic commons far more. So EigenLayer is really tackling that agility versus stability trade-off, where you build fast and you break stuff versus you build slow and methodical and you create long-lasting systems. And I think if you value both a short-term and a long-term win, Ethereum's a great community to be aligned with. And if you want to create something that captures a lot more attention and value quickly, then maybe Ethereum isn't what's designed for you, and you need to work a lot harder to create alignment, perhaps.
I have multiple answers. The first one is, I think betting against the Ethereum Foundation, Vitalik, teams like CKSync, Polygon, us, Starknet, Eigen, I don't think it's a very smart bet long term. They have capital. There are some of the best. I have worked for 20 years in software. Some of the smartest dudes and girls I have met in my life are in these teams in crypto. I learn a lot. I feel stupid sometimes. Yesterday I was talking to Shuram. I was like, the other day to, I don't remember, the guy that studied medicine from your team that is a researcher.
Kaido?
Yeah, I was discussing something with him about cryptography and distributed systems. So at one point I was like, fuck, this guy knows a lot of shit on, I don't normally feel stupid. I ask him what did you study? Medical school. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm stupid. There's a lot of people that are even the outsiders that didn't study computer science working in Ethereum are very smart. They have a lot of experience. So I don't think long-term is a good bet. Two, I do agree that Solana has way better UX. I respect a lot the more UI. They brought a lot of good designers on people that are very good at doing a full integration test. I think we need to learn a lot on that on Ethereum. However, their chain goes down every 2 or 3 months. There's a reason. And the reason is that the way it's designed will make that happens very often. And I discussed that with Anatoly. I think they cut some corners on. I believe the best thing is to have a very minimal L1 that can be verified anywhere, and you then do a very fast L2. And now we have L2s that are getting, it will take 1 or 2 years yet, but they have less than 1 cent fees. They're very safe. They're getting decentralized. In the next few months, we're decentralizing the sequencer of one of the L2s. With Volition, it's going to be even cheaper. If you can launch a stack per each, you can have an app chain for different applications. It's going to be even cheaper. And you can have also sovereignty. So those are the 2 main reasons. The third one, for me personal, I believe in the ethos of Vitalik. I don't see him as the Pope or anything. I agree with him. I think he has a very interesting soft power with very good values. I don't know, everybody I meet in the Ethereum Foundation and in these teams, they are doing it because they believe in it. So that for me means a lot. I'm an open source maxi type of person. So I believe that people that have a long-term focus on trying to bring value to society are the coolest people around. And in general, most people go to that place, not to the place where you can make only money. Making money is cool. I make money. But it's always better if you do it with people that have a long-term focus on providing value to society. And I believe that's it too.
I completely agree. We have a very similar framework at Eigen. We think about that. You can create value, you can capture value, but it's very difficult to create, capture, and distribute value. And more often than not, the personality type of somebody who wants to do all three is misaligned to the incentives of value capture, right? So it's quite interesting. We were chatting about this today, but like it's quite fun to work for almost like these, for lack of a better word, like a benevolent actors or benevolent even like dictators, even though that's so far from the truth for someone like Vitalik, right? Where it's like this open source commons of the Ethereum Foundation, and it's more like, hey, here's this general vector of a direction that we want this space to head into, and how can we all congregate and take the power of this incredible community of builders and head in that general direction while creating value and distributing value to everyone. So totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think we're all super aligned. And thanks for all the insights. Let's end with either a hot take or a piece of advice or value you hold true. Let's give everyone some advice.
CK will eat the world. I don't believe it's a hot take anymore. It's just that most people that are outside of the red circle don't know it. But for me, it's so obvious that it's a safe bet. It's getting so fast, and the UX is getting so better. And you have so many people doing research. Even you have Samsung, AMD, AWS spoke with us about it. Like all the big companies know it. They are saying it. In the next 3, 4, 5 years, it will be obvious. And I believe that anybody missing that train. Actually, that's a very hot critic I have against Solana or other L1s. I think they're amazing distributed system developers. I come from that background. I actually believe Ethereum needs to learn a little bit about more like practical engineering or system programming, but they're missing something so huge that is going to take the world on. I think anybody that doesn't know anything about it should try to learn, try to know more, try to understand why it's going to be so big.
I feel everyone here is early. You're sharing the alpha. Fede is incredibly based. Okay.
Hot take. Wow. Oh no. Okay, maybe I'll go here. I think we're going to start to see. We're already starting to see a lot of projects engage in multi-tenanting, where they don't necessarily align with any particular ecosystem. They're kind of just like, trying to find a fit in all these ecosystems, and that's fine when you're in a phase of iteration. But the reality is, you need to have a community in this space and build a strong community that will stay and drive your ecosystem when the speculators leave. And the reality is multi-tenanting is likely not going to be a long-term win strategy. It's more of a short-term win strategy. So I really want to focus on emphasizing builders to make decisions that are more driven around both short-term and long-term wins. and having a little bit more foresight into that rather than making decisions today that might affect their ability to grow and really engage with strong communities downstream.
Yeah, let's play.
Can I add something? There's a few things that so CK will take some years to become like huge. During that time, I believe that EigenLayer will be like a wormhole where every Altal 1 will be built again in EigenLayer, but better, in a more simplified way. I have too many ideas. I don't want to share them too much. But I think that everything that was built out, so you got Bitcoin. Bitcoin enabled the movement of data. We put a price on that data, but movement of free data worldwide without with censorship resistance, liveness, permissionless. Then you had Ethereum that enabled Turing completeness over that data. And then the only thing that happened, apart from CK, was people touching the parameters. Less nodes by, like I won't name names, but they did a smaller validator sets, bigger hardware. That's not big innovation. I actually thought multiple times of doing it. I was like, I will launch this and I can make $1 billion. I was like, no, it's too boring. I thought multiple times of like, let's do this. And I think at that time it didn't make sense. Now I do believe it makes sense because it's bringing innovation. I love that word from that sentence from Shiram. It's bringing innovation back to Ethereum. Like I think all those changes of parameters will be enabled on top of Ethereum using the security of Ethereum, the community of Ethereum. So I think that CK will take a lot of time, especially with big things like SQL, machine learning. And during that time, that can be more than a decade, EigenLayer will take all those things, and people will rebuild it there. And that's why my long-term focus will be in CK on the places that CK cannot be used, EigenLayer.
Yeah, I think it goes back to let's make sure, bringing innovation back to Ethereum, but also let's start, I think builders have been restricted in terms of their creativity even, of what they can do. Right? The design constraints of block space and the lack of scalability limits what they can do. And so bringing innovation also requires like re-inspiring some of the creativity to these builders. I think that's very important. And yeah, Fede's on top of it.
One example of that is that I never wanted to raise money and create a company. I'm a bootstrap type of person. And after again, I was like, fuck, I want to build something on top of it. So I think that's a great example of like, it's going to get a lot of builders that want to build cool things on top of Ethereum and Eigen.
Exactly.
I think our time's up, but we could go off forever. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming
Thank you so
today.
much.
Thank you.